now we move on to questions and answers, and I'm first going to take the gentleman in the third row, and then move on to the rest.
Bruno, Daily Telegraph. I agree with a lot of people's criticism of newspapers. There are kind of eternal criticisms that you can make about all the things that newspapers write about. There's all kinds of problems with newspapers that have been around for a long time. That isn't to say, it's a real count of despair to say that you cannot report the EU. There is a lot to report about the EU. The best EU reporting comes from Brussels correspondents who it's about the EU, because they know what they're talking about, because they're able to talk to people who know what they're talking about. I completely disagree with James. The EU is complex, so what? Lots of things are complex. You talk to people who are actors in it, you talk to people who are spokesmen for it, people who explain it, they explain it to you. That's what reporting is, that's what journalism is. The idea, this is one of the real Euro myths, is that the EU is so complex and no one really knows what's going on about it. It's an institution of authority. To say that authority, in the way in which it's wielded, in the way in which decisions are taken, are too complex for us mortal folk, is an amazingly elitist and patronising argument. It's just one that, you know, whatever your feelings on Euro myths, Euroscepticism, Europhilia, none of us should tolerate that idea, because it is an idea that many people in Brussels would like to encourage, kind of technocrats and diplomats would love to encourage the idea that the EU is a state of mind which many people cannot appreciate.
I probably ought to just respond to that quickly. Take the point, definitely. What I'm really saying is that the journalists don't bother picking up the phone, and they don't bother making those calls, which is why we repeatedly get the European Court of Human Rights referred to as EU judges free prisoners or give prisoners the votes or something like this. They don't. I mean, the subs don't bother to check Wikipedia, let alone pick up the phone to somebody in the press office or somebody in an institution somewhere. And your point about the Brussels correspondents, yeah, the Brussels correspondents, no doubt about it, do by far the best job. But the Brussels correspondents, they're a dying breed. I mean, they've dropped by, what is it, something like 33% or something over the last few years. I can't remember what the precise figure is. Papers are pulling Brussels correspondents out of Brussels repeatedly because the papers don't see it as important, because it doesn't sell copies. It doesn't sell copies. People don't want to advertise alongside the story because, you know, it's boring. And that's sort of thing. So I mean, I think the complexity thing is, I mean, yeah, it's obviously not quite as strong as I was necessarily making out, but it is very complex. I don't think anybody can understand the whole thing. You can certainly understand bits and pieces of it, but that means you need to have your correspondent in Brussels focusing on the common agricultural policy. You need somebody who understands fisheries policy. You need to understand the Eurozone and all this sort of stuff, because they're all difficult. Maybe you're some kind of genius and you understand more. I don't know.
I talk to people who do.
Yeah, but that's the point. Most people don't. I mean, the Telegraph's rare from British newspapers in having a Brussels correspondent still.
All right, next round of questions. There was a lady at the back.
Yes, I would like to ask Paul Staines to give us some sort of sense of what he means when he says that it's the euro that has ruined Ireland. Can you talk me through why it is that it's the euro and not the banking
I'll do it very slowly for you.
Yeah.
If Ireland wasn't in the euro,
yeah,
it would have had a higher interest rate, which would have taken these deflated the property bubble as normal. When a central bank has an out-of-control economy, it puts up interest rates. It couldn't do that because Ireland's interest rate is set in Frankfurt for the benefit of Germany. That's why we had a situation where we had a property correction. Is now a huge property overhang. We also couldn't, we were forced to pay down bank debts of Anglo-Irish Bank in September, 29 billion to European banks by the ECB. We were mandated to do that. Normally, when you have a bank like that for a country that size, you just let it go bust. European banks would have had to take losses. The problem is the whole of Europe, their banks are in trouble, and the ECB is worried about that. Given that Ireland is no longer free to determine its own economic future, we were forced to do that bailout. This bailout isn't for Irish, or for the benefit of the Irish, or for the benefit of Irish banking. It's to bail out European banks.
But the banks got themselves into trouble, didn't they? I mean,
the banks got themselves into trouble, and the normal course of events, it would have been allowed to go under. But we weren't allowed to do that. And you know, the British, mainly British, German, French, the bigger economies had investments in the Irish banks. They would have taken those losses. When you have the German banking system being propped up by the German government, they couldn't afford to take the losses on that scale.
I'm curious.
Sorry, we'll move on to another question. Benjamin there?
Philip Suter from Business for New Europe. have a look at a study that we did last year by Oxford Economics. It really clearly sets out the benefits of the European Union, and it's written by some, really quite highly qualified and well-respected people.
Paid for by you guys, though.
Oh yeah,
you always get the results you want when you pay for it, don't you?
No,
if you commissioned a report that didn't like that, I'd be very surprised.
Well, I'm sure you're shocked by the fact that all the mainstream politicians across the European Union continue to stand on platforms that don't involve withdrawal of the European Union. I mean, the great thing is, and the great thing if you're a member of the public, you can look at the sort of the constellation of political parties in this country, and the ones that people vote for all support Britain's membership of the European Union. Nobody's forcing us into this. But I mean, that's slightly a side issue. I want to say something about the media. I mean, headlines are headlines because they're sensational. There is an awful lot of substantive, detailed and robust reporting done on the European Union, but people don't read it because they're not interested. The reason that The Economist is a newspaper that has a lower circulation than the Daily Mail and the Daily Express, I think is pretty obvious. It's depressing, but it is obvious. And just as a last point, I don't want the EU to be exciting. I want it to be competent. If it was boring, I'd be far more sort of confident in what it did than if it was trying to make itself some sort of a public profile. But The Economist, I heard a mutter that The Economist is a newspaper. Actually, technically it is.
It's a legal form. It's a weekly magazine.
Right.
Yes, I'm Guido Fawkes from EUactiv in Brussels. EUactiv is EUactiv is based in Brussels, but we also have a network in a number of countries, in France, in Germany, most of Eastern Europe, even Turkey. And when I'm listening to the discussion, I started thinking that we need to open EUactiv co.uk really. And judging from my experience as a journalist before joining EUactiv 3 years ago, I was working in my country, Bulgaria, as a journalist, and we took a lot from the UK reports because they're very sexy. They present usually a scandal, and that's taken up by the Bulgarian press. Until the moment when we realized that all this was very biased, because when Bulgaria was about to exit in 2007, the British tabloids published hundreds of articles about hordes of Bulgarians coming to the islands here, depleting the islands of its riches, and nothing happened. The thing is that many journalists then realized that they should not take up so easily the articles from the British press. Well, the problem is that few people in Eastern Europe speak foreign languages, and it's true that most of the people speak badly English.
So, was there a question there?
No.
Okay. From now on, could I please ask people to make questions and not statements?